Okay, guys, so we're starting with the third part of the tutorial on creating the cup. This section will be about texturing. So the last thing, I think, before we start, just to make sure that we're on the same page, after creating the cup, you will have on the right column here, the right side of the screen, if you have under inputs, if you have all these instructions that you use to create the cup, just make sure to get rid of them by deleting the story. So you go to the menu, edit, um, delete all by type, history. By doing so, we basically end up with an object that is clean and it doesn't have any history behind it. So we can undo any of the actions we've done in the past, but at least we have a clean object to start with. Okay, we just did this operation because I don't remember at which state we ended up in the previous tutorial. But just to make sure, now if you click the object, under shape shouldn't appear any input at all. If you have the inputs, you can go again, is edit, delete all by type, and history. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to texture this object. Texturing is all about selecting different parts of the 3D object so we can unfold them. Imagine if this object was made of cardboard and you really try to paint something over it or paste a logotype or anything on it. To make it easier, you would have to make some cuts on this object so you can unfold it, and then over a table you can just basically paint it. That's really what the texturing process is all about. Is imagine cuts that you're going to make over your object so you can create these unfolded 2D textures and you can start painting on them. These unfolded 2D textures are composed of two sets of coordinates which are called u and v's. To make it a bit clear, I'm going to create an object. Let's create a box over here. Okay. Remember that I really hate this option to being able to create the cube by myself. So I'm going to delete this cube. And what I'm going to do now is just go basically to the menu, create, and under polygon primitives, you can uncheck this option, which is interactive creation. Same thing for the nerves. You can go create, nerves primitives, and uncheck interactive creation. So next time you create a cube, the cube will just be there, and you won't have to deal with tracing the base, the bottom of it, and then trace the height, etc., etc. So let's make this guy a little bit bigger, and that's it. Okay, so this is my cube. If I go here, let's split. I'm going to split the viewport in two. So I'm going to click this button over here, but I'm going to change the outliner view for the UV editor view. In order to do that, I can click over this arrow on the left and select UV texture editor. Okay, and now basically what I'm seeing is the same 3D object, but it is unfolded automatically. Well, right now it's really well unfolded because it's a primitive that Maya already has as default. All these objects, all these polygons that you see here are called primitives, and they're by default they already have their UV set already conformed, already fabricated, already prepared by Maya. But whenever we start creating an object like our cup, you see that, well, I have this one laid out already, but it usually look like a mess. And basically you would have to create a layout of all the pieces of the object in a 2D plane so you can paint over it. In order to do so, we use this tool called the UV editor. This is the UV editor. And like I said, we have a two set of coordinates called the u's which are the equivalent of the x's of a 2D plane, and the v's, which are the equivalent to the y's on a 2D plane. Every time I'm going to unfold a 3D object, I have to lay out all the coordinates for the texture on this quadrant, this dark gray one. We usually don't use these ones because this quadrant is the one that has the coordinates on U and the coordinates on V on both on positive side. If you see, this quadrant goes positive on the U's, but it goes negative on the V's. This one goes negative on the V's, on the U's, sorry, and negative on the V's as well. And this one goes negative on the U's and positive on the V's. So we only need this quadrant, and we have to lay out all our textures over this section of the object, okay, of the map, okay. So basically, what I need to do now, I'm going to delete the cube. What I need to do now is think about a way of making cuts over this object, so I can take all those parts and accommodate them over this quadrant. So I can take a snapshot of this image into Photoshop, for example, and start painting textures over it. So when I apply the textures back to the object inside Maya, it will already have all the textures painted on it. So what I'm thinking about here is probably the first thing I'm going to do is make a cut so I can have all the edge, the upper edge, in a separate piece. This circle at the bottom is a separate piece. The circle on the outer bottom is another piece. The cylinder around the container will be a different piece. Same thing for the smaller cylinder of the volume that conforms the container. And one last shape for the cup holder. So those are basically the different parts of the cup I need to cut and unfold in order to paint the textures of it. In order to do that, I will start applying a shader with a checkered texture over the object, so I can have a proper view of how I need to unfold the object, so the texture remains with the same, remains with the proper proportions of the object on it. So I'm going to start doing that. First, we're going to go to Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. And here, remember, the Hypershade is a tool that allows us to create shaders. Like I said, a shader is conformed of a material and a texture. If you see everything that surrounds us, all the objects that surround us have a combination of a material plus a texture. If you see, for example, the CPU of your computer, you will see that the material is plastic, and the texture could be the different colors of each CPU has. Usually it's black. If you think about the dishes in the kitchen, the material is porcelain or glass, and the texture is, I don't know, a set of paintings over the dish, or it could be white paint, or depending on the different dishes that each of us have, okay? In this case, it's a cup. I'm going to think about this cup like a cup made of porcelain, and the texture will be a brown color with a logo of Tim Hortons. But for now, the first thing I have to do in order to lay out the textures properly and in a proper manner, I'm going to use an approach that it's been used for a bunch of years, and many professionals do the same, because it's a very simple and proved effective procedure to do that. And it's basically create a material, in this case a fung, and just lay out a checkered texture over this material. So once I click here on the fung material, I double click over the icon, and this opens me the attribute editor. Under the attribute editor, as you can see, we have many attributes for that material. In particular, we have transparency. I'm going to select this, and with middle mouse button, I'm going to drag and drop the material over the cup. Remember to press the key 6 6 over the viewport. Remember that 4 is keyframe, 5 is shaded view, 6 is shaded view with textures. Right now it doesn't have any textures. I'm about to bring those up in a minute. And 7 is the same view with lights on it. Since I don't have any light on the scene, it's black. So for now, we'll be using the view number 6. So press 6 on the keyboard, and you should have this view, a view like this. So I'm going to select this object, sorry, the shader, middle mouse button, I drag and drop over the object. And as you can see, here are the different attributes. If I double click on the, again, if I double click on the icon, that opens me the attribute editor, and I see all the attributes. Like, for example, transparency. If I move transparency, see how it becomes transparent. I have ambient color, which make it ambient color refers to how the color will absorb light. So the darker it is, it will look like a regular material, and the closer to white, it will start producing its own lighting. Same thing with incandescence. We really don't see much of a difference here because we're using basically the same, the basic preview here in Maya, but it only gives you an idea of all the attributes we have for this object. In this case, we're only dealing with color. I can change the color here. I can make it darker. I can make it whiter. If I click over the color, a swatch appears, and then I can select a different color here. All right. And but in this case, I want to add a texture over it, not a plain color. So in order to add a texture, instead of clicking over the color, I'm going to click over this square, and that opens me this dialog box. Now on this dialog box, I have different types of textures. The one I'm going to use is this one called checker. So I click this one on checker, and now my material, as you can see here, is the Phong material, but it has a checkered texture over it, which is also applied to my object here. Your cup might not look that proportional because I was already playing around with the textures, the texture map on mine. But anyway, I'm going to repeat the whole process so you guys can understand how I get my proper textures on the cup. I can close this for now, Hypershade. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select different parts of it. I'm going to click 5 here for now, so we don't see the texture. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut over the first 3 circles, which is the border of the cup, the bottom, the inside bottom, and the outside bottom. Okay, so I right click over the object, select faces, and actually it's right click and select edge. And I'm going to select this one, this edge. I'm going to just maximize this view for now. Remember, I can just tap the space bar. If I tap it again, I go back to the previous view. So I tap it. And what I'm going to do again is I'm going to select this edge and Control Shift, double click on the adjacent edge. That selects the whole loop. Okay, it selects the loop. With that loop selected, I'm also going to, well, first I select that loop, and I'm going to hide, for now, I'm going to hide the texture here. Okay, so I'm going to click this small icon with a face on it so I can see what I'm doing. And the first thing I'm going to do is select this option, which is it's an icon with scissors in it. And basically what it does is it cuts this section of the object virtually. Of course, it's not separating the polygons from the mesh. It's not doing that. It's just a virtual cut for the texture. So I selected all the edges around. You can see that the vertices, the edges are selected in here. If you don't see them like this, don't worry. As long as you have the edge selected in here, you can press number 4 to see what I'm doing. You see here, it has only selected the inner circle, the circle that's inside the cup. So I press this button and I made a cut of that section. I'm going to do the same for this edge. So I click that edge, Control Shift, the adjacent edge, and now I have all the bottom circles selected, all the edges. You can see they're selected here. And then I'm going to make another cut. And then the last cut I'm going to do right now is this circle on the top. So I'm select this edge, Control Shift, double click on this one, and Control Shift this edge, double click on the adjacent one. So now I have selected all the upper part of the border of the cup. Okay, it's just the upper part of it is here, and I'm going to make another cut for that. Okay. Now that I have made a cut for those sections, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a UV map. In order to make a UV map, I need to take a picture of the object, a virtual picture. There are different ways of taking a picture of the object, and they are called mappings. If you go to the menu, Create UVs, you see that there are 4 different types of mappings. The first one is called planar mapping, which basically takes a photograph in a 2D plane over the object. I'm going to make use of that option for these circles and the border of the cup. But if I would be taking a snapshot of the cylinder around the holder, if I only take a 2D or a planar mapping, it wouldn't be showing me the sides on the other side of the cup because it's 2D, right? I would need to do a cylindrical mapping, which is kind of like taking a photograph with a cylinder shape. Same as for spherical mapping. We're not going to use spherical mapping on this project, but spherical mapping is useful where, let's say, you want to texture a soccer ball, or you want to texture a head of a character, something that resembles the shape of a sphere. And last but not least, we have automatic mapping. We barely use this option because honestly, it's very bad. Plus, I've been using planar, cylindrical, and spherical basically all my life in 3D, and I barely used automatic mapping. The results sometimes are awful, sometimes are great, so it's very unstable. And we can do basically everything automatic does with these 3 different mapping styles. So I'm going to focus on these 3, okay? So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to select the first one. First, I need to select the faces that I want to texture. So I'm going to select, right-click over the object, select face, and I'm going to select a marquee, make a marquee over the inner circle, which at the same time selects the bottom circle. Remember that all the selections are transparent in Maya, meaning that if I make the selection on this side, it automatically makes the selection on this other side. And then I'm going to select this upper part of the cup. So I press Control Shift, this face, and then double click on the adjacent face. And then I have selected the 2 circles at the bottom plus the edge of the cup. If I press the key number 4, I see this in a clear way. So it's basically this upper part is selected. And I also have selected the 2 circles at the bottom, okay? And I'm going to take my picture from the top. So I'm going to select Create UVs, Planar Mapping, and I'm going to select Option Box. Remember to reset the settings of the tool. And then what follows here is, okay, I'm going to make a projection. In this case, like I said, I want a projection to be made from the top of the object. If this is the angle, if this is the axis from which I want to take the picture, I have to make sure which axis is here. Is the y-axis, because I'm taking the picture from the top, okay? So I'm going to select here y-axis, and I'm going to click on project and see how planar mapping appears here. That's kind of like the lenses of my camera to take a snapshot of the textures of this object in a planar way from the top. Okay. If I go back here, I'm going to press 5 to shade the object. If I go back here, remember I can just tap over perspective view. If I tap over here, I see that here I have all the circles. I have my snapshot of the circles. The only problem I still have right now is that since I took a picture from the top, the three is one over the other, one on top of each other. So I see the three of them superposed. So what I'm going to do is separate them. In order to do that, I can go here on this side of the UV editor, right click and select UVs. And that shows me the UVs of the object. I'm going to select just one. I'm not sure which of the circles I'm selecting here, but doesn't matter. I select that one. I do right click, select shell. And it automatically selects all that piece I cut before, which is the inner circle. If you see how the green dots are here, specifying that it's that piece in particular, the piece that I cut from the cup. Okay. So now I press W or select the move tool, and I can move that texture, that map of the texture over here. I'm going to start separating all the pieces of the cup and lay them out so I can paint them later in Photoshop and bring them back to the object. So I'm going to go here and select another UV. I'm going to right click with the mouse button, select shell, and now I'm going to move this other shell. This shell seems to be the top. Is the top or the border of the container over here. You can see it's the top here. So I'm going to move that guy again. And now I have two separate pieces of the cup. These are two different pieces of the cup. And last but not least, I'm going to select this one, right click, select shell, and move the last part of it. Remember to lay them out separately, one onto the side of the other, so they're not superposed anymore. Okay, so these are basically the three pieces I just cut: the inner and outer bottom of the cup plus the border of it. All right, so the next step would be to have a snapshot of the outer and inner cylinders of the object. How am I going to do that? All right, I'm going to go here and select face. And I'm going to select all the faces of the object by drawing a marquee over here. Just make sure that you unselect all undesired pieces and just keep selecting the cylinder. So with control, remember with control, I unselect all the pieces I don't want as part of my picture. Like the bottoms. I don't want the bottoms because I've already have them textured. As you can see here, I still have this selected. If I don't want to click one by one of these faces, I could also press Control and draw a marquee on this one. And I unselected them here, okay? So these are my three circles. And now the only thing I have selected are the outer and the inner cylinder. If I press 4, you can see it here, okay? The only things selected are the cylinder or the container of the cup. All right. Okay. So I'm going to take a snapshot, just like I did with the circles, but this time, instead of taking a 2D planar snapshot, I'm going to take a cylindrical snapshot of it, so it grabs all the cylinder. Okay, so I'm going to create UVs and select cylindrical mapping option box. Remember to reset the settings and click project. Now, the interesting thing here is that you see here's the camera from which I'm going to make the mapping, but it's only covering half of the cylinder. It goes from this red indicator towards this red indicator. What I have to do is pick any of these two red indicators and slide them to the other side until they touch each other, closing the loop on the cylinder. So now, as you can see, there's a red line surrounding the whole object, and that indicates that the picture I'm going to take will have all the faces along the cylindrical container. Okay, and I'm going to click away from here. And the other thing I'm going to do now is, let me see what happens if I I could select, all right, I'm going to make another selection. Again, I'm going to select, now I'm going to select just the outer cylinder. So I do my selection again, just like I did before. Remember to unselect this, guys. Go here, control, unselect this guy as well. And I'm also going to unselect the faces inside the cup. With control, I click this one and continue unselecting all the inner faces of the object, so that only the outer cylinder gets selected. Oops, there's one here. Okay, it seems that that's it. Yeah. All right, and okay, I'm going to make a cut on these faces. Why? Because if I want to separate this cylinder, right now I only have a cylinder, but if I need to unfold that cylinder, I need to make a cut on one of the sides around here so I can unfold it properly. So let's say if I view my cup from this side, I'm going to select this border, these edges. I'm going to select all these edges, and I'm going to make a cut. And I'm also, let me see what happens if I just pick, I'm going to right click UV, and select this UV. I'm going here, right click, select shell, and see what happens. I'm going to try to move and see what happens. Okay, so what I'm moving here right now, what I'm moving, it's only the outer cylinder, not the inside cylinder, just the outer cylinder. Okay, I'm moving it and I'm putting it away around here, maybe just this part. And then I'm also going to click here, just one of the UVs here, right click, select shell, and I'm going to move it. And here's another part. I'm going to lay down this guy over here. So far so good. I have those pieces. So this is the outer cylinder, the inner cylinder, the bottom, and the top. Okay. The only thing that remains to be, I'm going to object mode here. The only things that remain to be textured is the holder. Okay. So for the holder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the faces of the holder like this. Make sure that's the only thing I have selected. Okay. And you know what? Before selecting them, I have this separated. Okay. I need to separate the cup holder from the cup. So I have to go into edge mode and make the cut, the virtual cuts. Okay, let's say I'm going to cut, make a cut here, 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 and then I'm going to cut also this part at the bottom, here, and here. I'm going to make a cut over there and a cut over here so I can separate the textures from the cup holder from the rest of the cup. But at the same time, since this part it's kind of like a cube or a cylinder, I also need to make a cut on the side so I can unfold it later. So just press Ctrl Shift and do another cut in here on the side of the object. And remember to press the scissors button. So now I made a cut. By making this cut, I'm separating the cup holder from the cup, and at the same time, I'm cutting along the cup holder so I can unfold it. Okay. And now I can select the faces, and I'm going here and create UVs, and I'm going to use planar mapping again. But this time, I want to make a planar mapping from the side, from here. So what I'm going to do is check, okay, that's the Z-axis. I'm going to make a planar mapping over the Z-axis, which is this one. Okay, then I'm going to change this one to Z-axis, and I'm going to say project. And see how now my projection comes on over the Z-axis. Whereas previously it was done over the Y-axis, so that it appeared parallel to the bottom, to the ground. But now it's perpendicular to the ground because I made it over the Z-axis. Okay, I can click outside here, and I have this projection of the cup. Okay, however, it's still not unfolded. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to UVs, select any UV. Or in this case, I don't need to right-click, select shell. I could do that, or I could just make a marquee over the whole section, over the whole part. And I have this button over here, which is Smooth UV tool. It's more of an interactive unfold tool. So I click this icon, and I have two options: unfold and relax. If I left click mouse over unfold and move the mouse from left to right, I can do an unfold, but right now it's giving me weird results. Let's see, let's try relax. It's giving me a good result either. Let me see. I'm going to select only one side. Let me select just see if planar is doesn't seem to be making a good unfolding. Wait me here a second. I'll see. I'm going to select just the inner UV, and I'm going to select the inner UVs. It should work. You know what? It should work with unfold. I'm going to press this button again, and then unfold, and unfold, and unfold, and unfold, and keep unfolding. It's not relaxing. Okay. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try to do. I'm going to select the faces again. I'm going to select the faces again. And now I'm going to do the mapping. I'm going to try cylindrical mapping so I can have a proper mapping of all the sides. Or let me see here, create UVs. Cylindrical mapping. Project. And let's close this cylinder over here. You see, it already gave me a better layout of the UVs. Let me see what happens when I do that. I'm going to select, oops, UVs. I'm going to UVs, select all the UVs here, and try again my tool and unfold them. Okay, let me try just a part. Let's say that part. All right. It looks like I'm going to select piece by piece here, so different parts of it. I don't know why it's doing that. I think that the problem. Let me see one thing. I think there's a phase that's missing here. Oh no, it's okay. No. It's okay. Oh, let me see why it's not working. Go back to object mode. Select the faces. And let me try a planar mapping from this side. Planar mapping. Now I'm going to make a mapping from the x-axis from this side. So I'm going to select X. Edit, yeah, x-axis and project. And see what happens like that. I'm going to just make sure that I have these edges again. I'm going to select them all, just the edges on the side, so I can make a cut. And I'm going to make sure that this cut is made. I don't know if it did it last time. Well, let's try that again. So I'm going to select UVs, select all these pieces, and try again to unfold it. There you go. Now it's unfolded. A little bit like that. Okay. So now it's planar. Now it's unfolded finally. So the way it worked better was to make a planar projection from this side and then select. Well, just make sure that the cut over this edge was done properly. Select all the edge and do the cut here with the tool, and that fixed the problem. So now I finally got all the different pieces that conform the cup, and I'm going back to object mode. And the thing I want to see here is I'd like to make all these parts fit inside this quadrant. But first, I have to bring back our textured view just to lay down these vertices, sorry, this texture in a more proportional way. Because right now they're not really squares; they're scaled towards the size. So I'm going to select. I will start by selecting all these UVs. Oops, going to UV, select all these UVs. All these UV. Okay, let me see. Select shell. And what's this? Okay, this is just a part of it. It looks like in this case, these two parts are separated. So what I'm going to do here is, yes, I'm going to select UV, select shell, and move it around here. And now I'm going to select edge and select these edges. As you can see, as soon as I select the edges on one side, they get selected on the other side. And I'm going to do the opposite of cutting. I'm going to merge them. So the opposite of this is this one, is this tool. This tool says move and sew the edges. So I'm going to click that one, and now all those two parts are part of the same of the same section. Okay, so I go back into UVs, and now if I go and select shell, it selects the whole piece together. And now I'm going to just scale it towards the side, so the checker becomes a bit more proportional, and it actually looks like a checker texture. Be sure to make sure that the areas in here where the two sides of the cylinder conform, they don't do crazy things like that. So keep extending them until they are closed seamlessly. And we're going to do the same thing with the other part of the inner circle. So I'm going to select shell, and let's see what happens here. I'm going to extend it as well, just to make it a bit more like its counterpart outside the cup, and make sure that the seam is around here. Make sure that the seam matches, and it's not giving me a weird shape there. So something like that, maybe just a little bit like that. Then I'm going to move this guy over here. Let me take all this, oops, and bring them here around there. And then this last part, which is a bit more difficult because, as you can see, the texture it's weird looking from here, this part. So here's the tricky part of it. You can spend as much time as you want trying to polishing this, polishing this the UVs. And what I'm going to do here is select these UVs. And for example, for instance, take this part. I'm going to, if I put the mouse over here, I see this is the UV that's getting me some problems. So what's going to happen if I select this one and I start moving it? I see that the texture gets corrected. Okay. So it looks like it's not completely laid out. So I'm going to select my tool and do an unfold again, just to make it a bit more standard like that. So it's not really that open. Same thing on this shape, trying to make it a bit more like a rectangle here. And see how my textures are already getting fixed and better, looking better. Still, I have some things like curvature here that probably I can take this and move it a bit up. Same thing with this one. Just trying to make them a little bit more, just trying to fixing the UVs along the cup holder. Same thing here, although here are still a bit disconnected. So let's say I'm going to select this guy. And like I said, you can spend lots of time polishing this and trying to make it up look a little bit better, a little more stable. I'm not gonna go into too much detail here because I could spend hours just trying to clean this thing a bit better, a bit more. But you got the idea of exactly how you're laying out the UVs. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. But basically, this has all the textures in it. Now, the only thing that remains to be done is to grab all these pieces and put them together inside the inside one inside this quadrant. As you can see, they're all super big. Another thing I'm going to do here is probably I'm going to take the 3 circles here and I'm going to scale them down properly like that and move them around here so they're scaled uniformly. And I'm going to bring this guy up and make it a bit smaller as well. And also with this tool, I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise a couple times, and then I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to scale it up a bit. And now I'm going to take everything and move it inside my quadrant here and start making it fit inside the area. A little bit more like this, maybe. A little bit more like that, just like that, there. So this is how it would look like in the end, okay? So I have my cup here, and all the different parts of it will be laid out in this proper manner inside the UV texture editor. On our next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to take this texture and export it into Photoshop and then bring it back into the object so we can play a bit more around with textures and see how it looks like in the end.